Peace Pilgrim, this person, not a real person. It's just a piece of paper. Peace Pilgrim said clearly that we all have a calling. And it's revealed to us through an awakening to our divine nature. When we awaken to our divine nature and then surrender to it, give our life over to it without reservations, then we gain a peace, a deep inner peace. And that's how we know that we have taken a step in the right direction. She was clear that there's an easy way to know whether you're doing the right thing with your life. And that is, do you have complete inner peace? Simple as that. If you have complete inner peace all the time, then you're living in a good way. If not, then you should be willing to stop doing everything, because it's hard to know which thing it is. So it may be the whole thing. But in any case, what it certainly is an attachment to self. Living according to the self-centered nature, as she puts it. And so that point must be released. When it's released, then we gain inner peace. When we gain inner peace, we can find our calling. We can directly perceive our calling, which has been there the whole time, but we couldn't perceive it because we were seeing everything through the lens of self-centeredness. Breaking through that lens, we can see it, so we live by it. Because we're living by it, it becomes even easier to let go of self-centeredness and find inner peace. She's clear that when we live according to the light that we can see, more is revealed. If we're not willing to live according to the wisdom that we have, then no further wisdom will be revealed. It's by living it that it is awakened. Because this isn't just a doctrine. If this path that we're on, if we were coming here just to learn the right beliefs, then that would be, then it would work that way. Then you could just learn them and be finished. But this path isn't just a set of beliefs, it's not just a set of doctrines. We're here to live appropriately. We're here to find a new, more loving, wiser way to live. And the only way we find out how to live is through living. So it's about being willing to take the wisdom we have, live by it. By living by it, see more clearly. We see more clearly, we can let go of ourselves. As we let go of ourselves, we find peace, and out of that peace comes wisdom. That wisdom then makes a difference to peace in our society, because it teaches us how to live. And as we live, it isn't just that our life has changed. Everyone we interact with, our entire society has changed as a result of the way we live. So when we come to a place like this, we have the chance to practice in a way that we can become more skillful at, to practice dropping self-centered awareness. Dropping that. As we drop that, then we enter what she calls stillness or silence. And there we find, as she says, God. There we find God. We find the wisdom of God. We find insights. And it's extremely important that we live those insights. Some of you may be somewhat familiar with her story. she had an insight. She had a new kind of awareness. At some point in her 30s, probably, maybe later, it's not clear. The years of her life aren't made very clear, which I appreciate. We don't really know what happened when. She didn't want anyone to know. She didn't want anyone to know the name she was given when she was born. Her name, her age, all of that she dropped when she became Peace Pilgrim, when she became a pilgrim of peace. Is that too loud?
It's all right. I can hear it, but I'd rather have the breeze, actually.
Oh, okay, good. So
Yeah, my head's a little stuffy, so
okay.
Sorry.
We can turn it down to a lower setting.
Maybe just turn it down a bit. But some people were. Yeah. So some of you may know about this. She was confused. She was no, it's fine. It's getting slow.
Lighter.
It's fine. You can. So she was confused. She was desperate for an answer regarding what to do with her life. Now, this might seem obvious. Here was this person who was desperate. Of course she was desperate, we might say. But I come from a Buddhist tradition, and in Buddhism, the fundamental aspect of that tradition, I'd say, actually, is to ask, why? What's the source of that confusion? What's the source of that desperation? What are the conditions that were the foundation of that confusion? This is a good question. We can say, oh, well, she's just confused. She's a confused lady. But that isn't true. Things don't happen for no reason. We might have that perception of others and even of ourselves. I'm just sad today. There's no reason. I'm just happy. There's no reason. But there are reasons. And so coming from a Buddhist background where this is stated clearly, there are always reasons. Everything came from something. It's worth investigating why was she so confused. And to me, the reason seems clear. She was confused because she was striving to make the world a better place. That's why. She was committed to making the world a better place, to doing good. She'd been working for peace for quite a while. She'd been trying to be in harmony with herself, with the people around her, trying to bring forth a better world where it was less likely that we would descend into nuclear annihilation. And that is confusing. That's a source of confusion. When we go down that road, the serve the world road, good news. It's going to be confusing. And as we walk further down it, we'll get more and more desperate, more and more bewildered. And she had gotten to a point when she was totally bewildered, totally confused, totally desperate. And she asked, therefore, what should I do? What can I do with my life? You just move a little bit. What can I do with my life? And the reason I bring up the point about the confusion is that until how do I say this? I shouldn't say it that way. To the extent that we are really confused, we can hear the answer to that question. To the extent that we're only a little confused, or not confused, we can ask that question a million times and we're not going to hear any answer at all. Or worse, we will hear an answer and follow that. We'll hear the answer that we think we're going to hear. We hear something and get attached to it, when really it's just our own ideas. Because she was so confused, she could ask that question fully and therefore hear the answer. And she was that confused because she was trying so hard to do good. And she was aware of the fact that she wasn't fulfilling her potential. When the harder we try at that goal, the more we see that we're not fulfilling our potential. It's not good enough, we see. I'm doing a lot, but it's just not good enough. And that's just what's supposed to happen. That doesn't mean that we're doing something wrong. A lot of the time we interpret it that way. She was very wise. She didn't interpret it that way. But a lot of us see it that way. I'm working so hard and I still don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. Things are going wrong. This isn't working. I should know by now. I shouldn't be more confused and more desperate. I should be wise and right. I should know all the answers by now. It's about time for me to have all the right answers. So that whatever anyone asks, I can always be right. Whatever I ask, I can always be right. We can have that sense, but that attitude shuts down the natural process that's supposed to happen, which is that we strive to make the world a better place and realize more and more fully that we're failing, that it's not working. We're not doing what we were born to do. We kind of, but not. Sort of, but not. It's not good enough. It's still too far away. And so the point I'm making is that she had the confidence to question that deeply, to be that confused, because of the work that she had done. Because she was serving, she gained the confidence she needed to be able to experience even deeper levels of insecurity. To the extent that we're experiencing insecurity at this moment, we are confident. Confidence and insecurity are the same thing. They're not opposites. When we have a certain amount of confidence, we will face the insecurity within. If we don't have enough confidence, then of course we can't face the insecurity that we have within. It's better to repress it, because we believe that we could never really resolve it. So it's better to just bury it and do something else. But because she'd done that hard work, she gained confidence. She knew, wow, I'm an amazing person. I'm really helping people. But not enough. And there you have the confidence and the insecurity. The hope and the hopelessness. Completely bound up in each other. And something I notice in a crowd like this is that the norm, I'm sorry to say, the norm is, I'm going to work hard because I believe in doing something good. And then I'm going to look at the results and see it's not good enough. I'm a failure. I should give up. I'm going to get depressed, lose energy. This isn't working. That's the norm. And I think it's the norm because we have a fundamentally confused, fundamentally inaccurate understanding of what's supposed to happen when we serve. What's supposed to happen when we strive to live our vow to fulfill our calling is that we're supposed to get increasingly confused, insecure, hopeless, desperate, bewildered, and deeply realize that I really don't know. I don't even know the one thing that's most important for me to know. Namely, what am I doing with my life? I don't even know that. Oftentimes when that happens for us, we think we're doing something wrong. But nothing is going wrong. Nothing is going wrong. From my perspective, it's clear that nothing's going wrong. I get excited when people feel this way. Like, oh, wonderful. Your practice is bearing fruit. This is fantastic. But most people don't have that experience at all. Most people really believe that it's a good time to doubt whether this is working. But how else could she have... Okay. If we think, I know, then we're not thinking, I don't know. Isn't that good logic? If we're convinced, I know, at that moment, we're not open to, I don't know. If we're not open to, I don't know, we're not experiencing total confusion. If we're not experiencing total confusion, then we're not experiencing a desperation for an answer we could never have imagined. If we're not experiencing desperation for an answer we never could have imagined, then the voice of God, while speaking all the time, isn't even interesting to us. Because that's an answer that we could never have imagined. It's an answer that's beyond our self-centered mental proliferation, as we'd say. It's beyond our sense of, hey, I should really plan this out, because I know. Just consider it. How are we going to plan this out? Do we know everything? No. So there's no way to plan this out. But we think we can, so we're not confused, so we're not desperate, so we're not open, so we don't hear. So for her, there she was. I'm going to now tell you what was happening for her. She was walking all through the night because she was desperate, deeply insecure, terrified, because she knew, I don't know what I should do with my life. How does that sound? Does that sound like the best possible thing that could happen to a person? Unable to sleep, her entire life falling apart. Is that the best thing that could happen to you? Really consider this. Is that what we aspire to? I'm going to serve others, and I'm going to see how inadequate my self-centered ideas are about what a better world would be and what I should do to contribute to that. As a result of that, I will completely lose faith in my ability to understand anything, including my life. Therefore, I'll lose my bearings, and my entire life will fall apart. How does that sound? Because that's the goal of coming here on Sundays. You should know that that's what I'm after. For me, but not only for me, because I'm not selfish, at least in this way. I want you also to have that experience. Only because I love you. Because I want you to have the best possible experience, and what I just described is the best thing that can happen to anyone. That is the best thing that can happen. There's nothing better. It's a big statement, isn't it? Well, disprove it. Please. Because the moment that happens, you see what happened for her. For the first time when she said, what should I do? I'm willing to do anything. finally willing to do anything, not most anything, not anything as long as I retain control over my future, not anything but be sure that this is taken care of, not anything as long as I can still have my current identity. I'm willing to do anything. I'm willing to lose anything. I'm willing to experience anything. Whatever it is, that's fine. At that moment, she received the answer. And the answer wasn't some words, like a kindergartner who you ask, what do you want to be? And they say, an airplane pilot. Most of us think our vow is that. Oh, I'm going to have a profession of some kind. That's not reality. That's a human construction. Your vow isn't something that's imprisoned by current human professions. So the answer that was given her was very simple. It was the direct experience of complete peace. This is what I'm asking you to do, said God. Experience complete peace. This is complete peace. Now you know what it is. Now, experience that. And it's so interesting because many of us, you know, if we're talking about God, I talked about God a lot last week, and I absolutely clarified her definition of God. Her definition of God is not, as I put it last week, a very bright, very shining, very kind, male entity who lives in heaven and does his best to help us but often can't. I'm not saying that, as I said last week, I'm not saying that such an entity doesn't exist. I am saying that that's not what she's talking about. She is not referring to what I just said, because she gives a definition of God. God is what you don't understand. That's God. So that's what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about everything in the world that we don't understand. That's God. You can try to put other stuff on it. Well, go ahead, but not in this conversation. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about God as everything that we don't understand. What's exciting is that when we get to that point that she got to late that night, we realize, I don't understand anything. And when we have the experience, I don't understand anything, then everything is God. And so naturally we experience a deep peace. Because from that point forward, we know we're always in the presence of God. It's not about getting an idea. Because she had that experience of peace, she could then move on and go through years, 15 years of hard work, purifying her actions, her motivations, her thoughts, her feelings. That purification was possible because of that experience. She realized she had to relinquish all negative thoughts. And that was hard work. But she got there. It didn't take her too long. It took her 15 years to get to the point when she never had a negative thought again. But she got there. She went decades without a single negative thought arising in her mind. No negative feelings, no negative motivations, and no negative actions. Because she worked on that so much, because she tried so hard, she had another experience. A much deeper experience of far more joy. Even deeper peace. Why? Because she had done that work. So when we do this work to make the world a better place, we enter humility. That humility allows us to experience confidence. Because confidence and humility are the same thing. That confidence allows us to experience insecurity. Because confidence and insecurity are the same thing. Insecurity allows us to awaken to something that we couldn't have figured out. Something that isn't guided by our self-centered notions. And when we directly awaken to that, it's our job then to live it. When we live it, then the next experience comes. It's very kind of her. It's extremely kind of her to lay this out so clearly. If we don't live it, then whatever insights we've had just die. If we don't have the experience of giving our days, our minutes, our moments to our insights, then how could the next one come? And without an insight to something beyond what we can imagine, then how could that be our vow? It's by definition not greater than ourselves. It's just what I can figure out. And so please, if you're a person, as I know many of you are, who do good for the world, who strive for justice, who try to make the world a better place, and it feels like it's just not enough. I'm just not doing enough. It's not the real thing. This isn't really what I was born to do. And so then you feel a lack of confidence in your ability to understand what you should do with your life. And because of that, your life starts to fall apart. Then know that there's no one in the world who's more fortunate than you are. It's the best possible thing that can happen to a person. Even though it's the thing that we try to avoid at all costs. Many of us are willing to die before that happens. Many of us are willing to avoid that at all costs. And when we're going through that, it can feel as if we're dying. Good news. We are. We're dying finally. So that someone, maybe Peace Pilgrim, can arise. A rebirth can happen. So we come here for that great sacrifice, for that great purpose, for that great aspiration. And last thing I'll say before we move into the practice is that oftentimes as we're going through that, it can feel lonely. And that's why we have this community. So that we can know, here we are. Soryu says this a lot, and yet these people keep coming. So apparently we as a community are going through this. Confusion, insecurity, death, rebirth, together. So actually I'm not alone. I may look around and not be able to see how each person is striving to make the world a better place, failing, giving up, awakening, and coming to life anew. It's hard to see, especially because so many of us try to hide it while it's happening. And just say, yeah, I'm fine, I have a pretty good sense of things. But actually we know that the people here are going through that, and in fact want to go through that, because it's been advertised that we're coming to move through such a process. And so we don't have to feel alone in this process. You don't have to feel like I'm the only one who's trying and failing to fulfill my calling. Good news. Everyone here is trying and failing to fulfill our calling. Doesn't that feel better? Isn't that nice? That's nice. So why isn't it nice? That's what we'll explore now. But I'll tell you the punch, I'll give you the answer in the back of the book, and then we'll explore it with the practice. The reason it isn't nice is very simple. It's that we make it into some story about me. We think I'm failing. And the moment we do that, we've attached to a self-centered perspective. And the moment we attach to a self-centered perspective, peace, love, and wisdom are shut out of our lives. So let's explore that. Take a moment to straighten up. And settle in. And review the past week. Review the past week, recalling the actions that you've taken to serve the world. You're part of the world, your acquaintances are part of the world, all living things are part of the world. What have you done in the past week that was a self-sacrificing act in order to serve the world? In order to benefit yourself, others, the whole world. You may have wanted to eat another cookie, but realized that wouldn't benefit me really. And so you didn't. Why? Because you wanted to serve yourself. You made a great sacrifice in order to make someone's life better, yours. You may have wanted to enjoy some kind of entertainment, but someone you know needed you. And so you sacrificed that in order to benefit them. You may have participated in a profession that benefited our society, the whole world. Even though you could have participated in one that might have paid more, but would not have benefited this world, this society. And these are just 3 examples among countless examples of the things that the people in this group did in the last week in order to be of benefit. review for yourself. What were the things that you did? What did you do to benefit the world? And each time you remember, feel good about that. We continue to review your actions, in particular attending to those that have been beneficial and required a certain self-sacrifice. And allow yourself to feel good, to feel the natural pleasure that comes. From noting our acts of kindness. continue with this exercise, allowing yourself to feel happy. But also allow yourself to feel any sense that that just wasn't good enough. It's okay if both of these arise together. We can be proud of something we did, and also know that we wish we could have done more, but we couldn't find a way. The mixing of these two emotional reactions is very important, and it's natural. We naturally feel both. Sometimes we try to repress one, sometimes we try to repress the other. Some of us tend to feel happiness about doing good and then feel shame that we feel happiness, and try to stop ourselves from feeling that. Others of us do something and feel it's not good enough and feel overwhelmed by that and try to stop ourselves from feeling that. Now's your chance to not interfere, to remember what you've done and feel happy about that. Happy about your generosity, your kindness, your compassion, your love. And also feel unfulfilled, unsatisfied, because of a sense of deep self-confidence that somehow you could be doing more. Continue with this exercise, allowing the happiness to nourish you, to hold you, to fill you, to whatever extent it naturally does. No need to make any of that happen. Allow it to happen naturally without resisting. And allow any sense of dissatisfaction with our actions to arise and encourage us to see what we have not yet seen, to know what we have not yet known, to realize what we have not yet realized. That also is natural, it doesn't need to be forced. Both reactions arise naturally. Sometimes one arises more than the other, sometimes it's the reverse. All of that's fine. Trust it. Both emotional reactions are healthy, useful. Bringing us forward on this path. Allow them to happen. great deal of clarity that naturally emerges with that exercise. And now let's move this in a different direction. Feel free, if you'd like, to move around, stand up, anything you'd like. Allow your body to be comfortable. And whether you're sitting or standing, continue the meditation with the following exercise. Pay attention simply to whether you're paying attention to a story that you're telling about yourself. That's all. Simply know at all times whether at this moment you're telling a story about yourself. If you think, I'm telling a story about myself, then you're telling a story about yourself. If you think, I'm not telling a story about myself, then you're telling a story about yourself. If you think, I can do this, you're telling a story about yourself. If you think, I can't do this, you're telling a story about yourself. If you think, I don't understand, you're telling a story about yourself. I like this. I don't like this. This is good. This is bad. I'm succeeding. I'm failing. I'm comfortable. I'm uncomfortable. Put simply, anytime you're telling a story about yourself, you're telling a story about yourself. And note that. Just know that. And it's also possible to know when you're not. At times you're not. At the moment of hearing the birds chirp, at the moment of hearing that, you're not telling a story about yourself. At the moment of feeling your exhale, you're not telling a story about yourself. In fact, even if you listen to the words, I'm good or I'm bad, but you listen to them knowing that they're just words, then at that moment, you're not telling a story about yourself. You're just listening to words. So according to your understanding of this exercise, simply know, moment by moment, at this moment, am I telling a story about myself? There's no need to try to stop telling stories about yourself. The purpose of the exercise is not to prevent telling stories about ourselves. The purpose of the exercise is to know at this moment, am I telling a story about myself? Simply to know that. We may tell a story for this whole period, that's fine. It was the practice, in fact, to tell stories about ourselves for the first half an hour. So it's not surprising if those stories continue, or if others replace them. It's also fine if the stories stop, and for a little while or a long while there are no stories about ourselves. Either way is fine. This exercise is aiming not towards one or the other, but simply towards knowing which one is happening right now. And now, finally, in the last few minutes, pay attention and see which of these two states is more peaceful. Which of these two states is more enjoyable? Again, there's no need to try to make one happen, even if it's more peaceful and more enjoyable. Just observe. Is it more peaceful, more joyful to live while telling a story about myself? Or is it more peaceful, more enjoyable to live while not telling a story about myself. And who knows, it could even change. But right now, we can know the answer to that question as the moments pass for the next few minutes. Know the answer for ourselves at this time. Appreciate that time very much. It's very powerful, and that practice has significant impact on us. I appreciate our willingness to explore that. Mine as well. And everyone. Very much appreciate that. This is the time for questions, reports, discussion, clarification. This is your time.
I thought I had a question from last week, and then I think it sort of answering this. I had a report back from the exercise you gave me last week about feeling agitation, dullness, and combination, or neither.
Yeah.
Can you speak up a little bit? Yeah. What I found was that most of the time when
last week,
sorry.
do you want to say it or should I say it?
You go.
So last week we talked about feeling agitated about what we're doing with our lives, and I mentioned that there's a sense of agitation. I should do more. And there's also a sense of being exhausted and tired and wanting to do less. And that these have a relationship. And so it's worth attending to what it's like for one to be happening, the other, both, or neither.
And I found that most of the time I noticed that there was both. And when I sort of examined it further, I felt like it was dullness covering over agitation. And I feel like the agitation was covering over pain and confusion. And that pain and confusion also sort of, when I felt it, sort of also felt very tied in with love. And it felt very relevant to Peace Pilgrim.
Wow.
And I sort of had a...
Well, this is what can happen if you practice mindfulness. Here it is. This is it.
What happened
Let's turn off the fan. So she said, do you want to say it?
Say it again. Is it?
Or I could.
You couldn't hear? Oh. I felt that dullness covered agitation, which covered pain and confusion, but the pain and confusion was also very tied in with love. And by feeling the pain, I also felt love. And I guess I came with a question about how to stay with that more. But I felt like in the sit today, I sort of got a little bit of an answer. I was just asking, like, what, it's similar to that retreat, like, that exercise you gave on retreat one time about what is this, and then who is feeling this. Asking both of those at the same time felt like, it made it facilitated feeling both of those feelings.
So by asking those questions, you could stay with those feelings. That's what you're saying? Great. Wonderful. This is a very exciting report. Yeah. Good job. Fun. Was it fun?
It was fun. It was very peaceful.
Good. It was peaceful in its painful love.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, there it is. That's it. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah?
I have an interesting experience for me. During the first part of the meditation, I ended up in this very quiet place without thoughts that I've not really experienced before. And I thought, what is this? You know, it was like, wow. And somehow it felt connected to the power of the room and the place. It was really interesting. And then you came up with stories about yourself I had a lot of those. So, but it was good to know I could have them or not have them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was okay.
Mm-hmm. And so the stories came, but were they there for the entire period, or did you have that thoughtless experience sometimes?
It never went back to how it was. There was something about stories about yourself that was a powerful pull. But it did kind of flip between stories about myself and, okay, a bit of why.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the first half, you're saying, was more or less without thoughts?
Not the whole time.
Yes, but
no,
that's the period that you're referring to?
What?
Is that the period that you're referring to? The first half of the practice was when that was happening?
Yes.
And then the second half, when we were observing, are there stories or not, then there were some stories.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Great. Very good. And I was connected with the room, you think, as far as you could tell. Connected with the group, with the community.
It felt like it.
Wonderful. Very good. No? There it is. That's what can happen if you practice mindfulness.
I had a lot of doubt about whether I was doing the technique appropriately or correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And then stories about confusion, which is clear. So like there's sometimes I knew story, not story, and then a lot of the time it's just like,
So in that case, you didn't know whether there was a story or not. But that doesn't sound like that was what was confusing.
More like, how do I know if there's a story or not?
Uh-huh.
How can I tell if like, it's already like kind of overwhelming, like how can I tell if I'm telling a story or not right now? And then on top of that, like how do I tell if it's more peaceful?
Right.
With this, it's like, Oh
yes. The last few minutes, I was actually the whole exercise we did a lot. There's a lot of stuff happening in this hour. And a lot of it was actually designed to be triggering. So it's fine. Because that's the material that we work through. That's what the talk I gave. I warned you. Didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
This could be confusing. You know, I didn't leave that out of my introductory comments. Yes, that I respect, I honor, I believe in confusion. So there are a lot of different things that were happening in exercise, which is just fine. And especially at the end, there was a large number of things to pay attention to, all of which were somewhat nebulous. Am I telling a story or not is already a little confusing, and then which one is more peaceful and joyous? Well, I don't know that at all, but there we are, that's the confusion. So then what? And you simply experience the confusion.
Yeah, I just kept going.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I actually mean this, even though it might be hard to believe. But this is what can happen when you practice mindfulness. These are three beautiful experiences, three perfect experiences to have. And you're so fortunate to have had that experience. The same as the other two people who have reported. That's just what happens when we practice mindfulness. It's exciting, isn't it? Really nice. So many times there are things, I've mentioned this at the talks in the monastic program. We do this practice and gradually realize that we don't have answers to what many of us would think were very simple questions. The simple answers fade away. Are you thinking about yourself right now? I'm not sure, actually. What is the line between telling a story about myself and not telling a story about myself? I don't know, actually. Isn't that amazing? You're asked, in your experience, are you telling a story about yourself right now? Are you thinking about yourself right now? And we realize, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we're telling the story, I don't know. As you said, if you start telling the story, I don't know, it becomes clear. But there is confusion. There is an experience of really not knowing, not turning it into a story, I don't know, but actually just not knowing and having that experience directly. And then the same thing with other aspects of experience. It's incredible. Are you suffering right now? Well, it seems like that should be an easy question to answer. That should be easy. If there's anything I could know, it's am I suffering right now? But then you sit and you realize not only do I not know, but you start noticing times when you're actually wrong. We start noticing that. We think the answer is no, I'm not suffering right now. You realize, oh, wait, I'm definitely suffering right now. You realize you think, I'm really suffering right now. You realize, wait, I'm not. What? I'm wrong about that? I'm confused about that? What? And that's this deeper confusion, the deep humility that allows us to then realize something that we could never have imagined, something that we could never have planned out, figured out. Which is the experience that I was describing for Peace Pilgrim. We really then ask. We can finally actually ask. As long as we know the answer, we can't really ask the question. So, wonderful. Everybody's having major insights this evening. Yes?
I almost feel like I shouldn't be asking this question, but
It's okay. It's a major insight. Don't worry.
I'm sure if it's an insight.
Oh, I'm sure.
Question.
Still an insight.
So I've been a little unhinged lately.
There it is.
That's
Everyone?
what happens when I say my
This morning and yesterday,
Yeah.
I'm noticing that I've had these experiences of being in so much pain because of something suffering.
Mm-hmm.
In one case, it was some video that I was watching, and it was so painful to watch it.
Mm.
And then the other was a person who was suffering, and my heart just felt like it was gonna it was just breaking. I just couldn't even tolerate the pain, and I had something I had to actually get done too. So I had to find a way to sort of shut down that pain a little bit so I could get done. But it had to get done. But yes, any thoughts you had on that would be useful.
Yeah, this is. There's nothing about that that's less of an insight than anything anyone else has said this evening. It's admirable. It's exemplary of the aims of this practice that you had that experience. That you were open enough to the pain of the world that it's okay. That you were open enough to the pain of the world that it would break your heart. That's part of this. But the other part of it is that we're not entering this path to get injured. We're not entering this path so that we're put in a place that's unsafe. It's true, our hearts break. But they break because we've done a practice and matured to the point when they're breaking is a natural and beautiful process, even from our own perspective. So the way I set this up, and I appreciate the way you put this, I set it up saying it's confusing, there's despair. I went through that quite a bit. But if we go through that with deep mindfulness, with deep equanimity, if we go through that very experience with deep mindfulness, deep equanimity, then not only is that very experience that I described, we're completely confused, we're bewildered, we're desperate. That very experience, not another one, that very experience is not only not suffering, it's not suffering. It's one of the most uplifting, it could be the most uplifting experience we've ever had. And this brings us back to the question of, am I suffering? Because we go through this kind of experience and we're sure we're suffering. But we realize, I'm not. There's no suffering here. I'm totally confused. But that's okay. That's just the direct experience of being liberated from my fixed views, which is great. It's fantastic. I'm desperate. That's just the direct experience of love and faith. That's all it is. We directly experience that. When I describe it, I know that probably it's triggering to a lot of people. And there's the absolute conviction, if I ever got really confused and desperate, I would definitely be suffering. That would be terrible. I hope that never happens to me. Well, I know that comes up. But if we actually experience that with the depth of this practice, not only is it not suffering, it's so hard to understand, but it's blissful. It's fantastic to be simultaneously free and guided by love. So then we say, oh good, that's what I want. But it doesn't really work that way. It's not about, I want this and I don't want that. It's about accepting experiences as you did, fully accepting those experiences, and meeting them with the depth of this practice so that the way we react to them allows them to have meaning, allows them to be our teachers, allows them to bring forth a growth, a realization within us that is greater than ourselves. So, on the one hand, if you're having that experience, then that's wonderful. The fact that you're willing to have that experience is already an indication that you have a deep practice, as we call it. That's good. It's good that you're that open. It's good that you're that clear to your friends, to the world situation. And it's important to carefully develop, probably outside of such an extreme situation, the capacities of mindfulness, of equanimity, so that when you enter that situation, you'll have exactly the same confusion and despair, even pain. But it won't become delusion and suffering. It actually won't. And that is an experience of being uplifted. That is an experience of gaining a new dimension of self-confidence. And that's why we have a community, that's why we set aside the time. For many of us, of course, we set aside the time so that we can feel more peaceful, so we can feel better. Peaceful meaning get away from things, peaceful. And that's fine if that's what we want out of this practice. Good news, the practice will deliver that. If you want that, it'll give it. You can set things up so that that's what you get. And you'll get it. And that's good. It's valuable. And other people want more than that. Other people want a peace that doesn't go away when you can't get away from things anymore. And to do that, we don't just use the hour or 10 minutes or whatever time we have each day to meditate in order to seclude ourselves. Of course, that's part of what we're doing, but we're secluding ourselves for a purpose. We're secluding ourselves because we know that under those circumstances we can't develop those skills. There's too much on the line. It's not a time for practicing. It's a time for performing. Yes, you're with someone in pain. You can't just practice on them. It's not respectful. It's not loving, actually. At that point, we have to give what we already have developed to them, our openness, our love, that we're prepared to give. But then we set aside some time in order to develop the deep skills of mindfulness, equanimity, openness to entering confusion, openness to feeling love. We develop that clearly in a safe place for ourselves, so that because we've developed them, even when we go into a place that's externally not as safe, we have those skills, so we're still safe. And when I say safe, it doesn't mean that we don't get our heart broken. It doesn't mean that we're not confused. It doesn't mean that we know all the answers and we're always going to be right. It doesn't mean that when something terrible happens, we're just numb to it. All of the same things happen, and yet the way we experience them is radically different. But that isn't something that we can just wish for. Say, oh good, I want that, so tomorrow I'll have it. It's something that we sit down and we strive for. We strive for that deep mindfulness, profound equanimity. Knowing that once we've gained those skills, they're not just going to disappear. They're like any skills. Once you have the skill, you have the skill. You can ride a bike, you can ride a bike. It's a skill. You have it then. And it can then be applied to different situations. But I want to be clear that it isn't, of course, sometimes we just have to do it. As you said. You said there's something I had to do. Sometimes you just have to do it. Okay. But we should know that this is the reason that we set aside the time to practice. Because we want to give ourselves a chance to practice. We don't want to be always on, always with a high pressure situation. Sometimes we have to take the pressure off and learn how to respond to a situation that isn't extreme. We learn how to respond to paying attention to our breathing, paying attention to whatever emotions happen to be arising. Pay attention to the confusion that comes up when we don't know if we're telling a story or not, or supposed to or not, or what is this? Ability to receive that simple confusion that we know isn't really dangerous, and learn how to deal with it in a precise, open way, so that then we're prepared when we're in a situation when we need to respond from that awareness, from that experience. And that then allows us to have our hearts broken, and yet even at that moment we're still, you could say, safe. Is that clear?
I understand what you're saying, yes.
Yeah.
That's clear in that sense, yes.
In what sense is it not clear?
I'm not clear in what sense it's not clear. I mean, I understand what you're saying, that you can have that same experience you're having in a different way. So it's like, yes, maybe I had that experience at a time when I couldn't really work with it in terms of mindfulness. But I'll have that same experience at a time when I can work with it, so that next time I'll be able to go into it in a more equanimous way.
May I take a guess about what isn't clear?
All yours.
So, please tell me I'm wrong if I'm wrong. Okay? It's fine if I'm wrong. It's nice to be wrong. Being wrong is fun. No problem. We actually have a program at the monastery where if anyone can prove that I'm wrong about something, then they get extra free time. Incidentally, on that topic, I've said a few times that Peace Pilgrim put without reservations in italics. She doesn't. There are hyphens, and there's the word any. And somehow in my mind, I remember so clearly it's in italics. I can see it so clearly, but maybe that's not true. Apparently it's not. There's no evidence that I'm right. It's written with a hyphen, and then without any reservation, and then a hyphen. Which is actually better. The word any is actually clearer than italics would be. But Michael gets free time. So,
I could have gone free time.
that's our policy. So, we have the policy. So if you want, and the point of the policy isn't to give people free time or to make me wrong. The point of that policy is to make our culture one in which it's okay to say, no, that's not what I meant, teacher. Does that make sense? So you have that permission in our culture here. So this is my guess. It's a very simple guess. After Peace Pilgrim understood, she then struggled for 15 years.
Yes, I would say you are right about that. Exactly.
So that's why, again, why we're here. We're here because we can hear the answer and agree with it, and it's not realized. So we struggle, and we work, and we try, and we fail, and we succeed. We're confused, and we're clear, and we walk a path. We take a journey. And it's by walking it that it's realized, not merely agreed with.